What's up, everybody, and welcome to Lights, Camera, Exploitation, your guide to exploitive cinema. This is your host with the motherfucking most, TJ Bowser, and joining me today is my doppelganger, kanga-banger from down under, Mr. Brody Kane.
Howdy, howdy, my mother lickers.
And Mr. Slick Nick with the big woo, Reese.
Hola, y'all.
Today is April 2nd, 2021, and we got a doozy of an episode for you today. But first, it's time for your slice of life. Brody, how was your day?
Yeah, so far it's not too bad, actually. It's very early in the morning here, obviously. This week, it's been flat out at work. I received my Edge of the Axe Blu-ray from Arrow, so I am yet to still watch that bad boy. Also received Jeepers Creepers from 88 Films in the mail, and I started to watch that last night, and it looks really
Is that from 88 or is that from Shout Factory?
No, it's actually 88 Films.
Oh, it is? Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I also ordered a Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3 Dream Warriors day bill. So I can't wait to receive that bad boy and frame the absolute shit out of it. But other than that, yeah, as I said, pretty chillaxed down this way this week. Nick, what about yourself, mate? What have you been up to?
A bit of the same. Mostly just been working, relaxing afterwards as much as I can. Started watching that new Amazon Prime show for Invincible, the Image Comics thing. So I've gotten into that a little bit. Gonna check out the new episode tonight, actually, after we finish recording, and that's pretty much about it. Gonna go see Kong vs. Godzilla tomorrow. Rented out a theater for that one, so me and the other guys from Beetle Bros, some of our friends, are gonna go watch that together. So that should be fun. But yeah, that's about it, really. That and then the new Falcon Winter Soldier episode tonight. Just been watching stuff. So what about you, TJ?
Thought you weren't going to ask. So as I say every week, I did podcasts here, podcasts there, podcasts everywhere. But more importantly, that fatality's out, isn't it, Brody?
That is correct.
We have audio and video.
Yes. And we are sorry for the Snyder cut of that video. We had to break it up into 2 episodes. So head over to Project Louder and suss out MK Fatality. We hope you enjoy it.
Fucking A.
Hell yeah.
Did a little bit of Blu-ray shopping. Gonna be doing a little bit more. I'm not gonna say anything until it arrives. Vinegar Syndrome announced a bunch of new titles coming, and I'm excited for that, especially the Homegrown Horrors box set that they announced. Definitely going to be picking that up. Excited for today's episode. For you guys who don't know, this movie is actually the movie that inspired the artwork for Lights, Camera, Exploitation and the clown man bashing up the car. Yeah. It's actually, we saw a promo shot from the original advertising of this film. Well, this week's film, which is 1979's Mad Max. Yeah, we saw this like really cool promotional shot of this biker dude smashing up this car, and I was like, man, it'd be cool if we had our own little version of that. It led to Corey working on art for us, and it turned out really, really well. And yeah, I'm excited to talk about this movie. And this week's movie is 1979's Mad Max, directed by George Miller.
Mad Max. He's the only law in a future world gone mad. They killed his partner, attacked his wife and child. Now it's his turn, and Max is mad. Mad Max, the maximum force of the future. Rated R.
Who also did The Road Warrior in 1981, Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome in 1985, Babe, Pig in the City in 1998, and then Mad Max Fury Road in 2015. Brody, what's with the Pig movies?
I really don't know, and I didn't even realize that he directed these films until I was a lot older. So basically one extreme to the other. I reckon it's due to the fact that he ended up having kids, and that was sort of a turning point for him.
Yes. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. The film was written by James, how do you say that last name, Brody? McCausland and Brian Kennedy, and of course George Miller. So George Miller would also write but not direct Babe from 1995, Happy Feet 1 and 2, and then I guess he's working on a new Mad Max film called The Wasteland, which is to be announced. Brody, have you heard anything about that?
I've basically heard that it evolves around more so Furiosa, and it could be titled Furiosa at this stage. I'm not entirely sure. All I know is that, and that Chris Hemsworth is going to be a part of that film. So
Oh, that's awesome.
That's about it so far.
Okay, so producers Byron Kennedy and Bill Miller, cinematographer David Egby, who also did Warlock in 1989, Quigley Down Under in 1990, Pitch Black in 2000, and Eurotrip in 2004. Muscuzzi.
Long tunnel.
Music by Brian May, not who you're thinking of, who did The Road Warrior in 1981, Turkey Shoot in 1982, Freddy's Dead in 1991, and Dr. Giggles in 1992. This film had a budget of $350,000 USD. Oh, that's the equivalent. I don't know what that would be in Australian back then.
I think I saw it was about 400K at the time.
Okay. Starring Mel Gibson as Max. You may know him from Lethal Weapon in 1987, Braveheart in 1995, or the M. Night Shyamalan film Signs in 2002. Joanne Samuel as Jessie. She was also in Allison's Birthday in 1981, The Wiggles movie in 1997, one of Brody's favorites, and Smoke Between Trees in 2019.
Hot potato, hot potato.
Fruit salad.
Hugh Keed Byrne
Yep.
as Toecutter. He was in Stone in 1974, Moby Dick in 1998, and Mad Max Fury Road in 2015. Steve Bisley as Jim Goose also starred in Summer City in 1977, Fast Talking in 1984, and Boar in 2017, which is the inferior version of Razorback. Tim Burns as Johnny the Boy, as seen in Patrol Boy in 1979, The Chain Reaction in 1980, and Monkey Grip in 1982. Roger Ward as Fifi is from the other Exploitation film, The Man from Hong Kong in 1975. Hopefully we cover that in future episode. Turkey Shoot in 1982, and Quigley Down Under in 1990. Lisa Aldenhoven as Nurse, who starred in Cop Show from 1977 till 1978, The Young Doctors from 1979 and 1980, and Brilliant Lies in 1996. David Brax as Mudguts, who starred in The Chain Reaction in 1980, The Coca-Cola Kid in 1985, and Crocodile Dundee in 1986. Brody, take it away.
In a not too distant dystopian future where man's most precious resource oil has been depleted and the world plunged into war, famine and financial chaos, the last vestige of the law in Australia attempt to restrain a vicious biker gang, Max, an officer with the Main Force Patrol, launches a personal vendetta against the gang when his wife and son are hunted down and murdered, leaving him with nothing but the instincts for survival and retribution.
Fucking A. So this movie won a couple of awards and was nominated for a few as well. So in 1979, the Australian Film Institute gave it the award for Best Original Music Score, Best Achievement in Sound, Best Achievement in Editing, and it won an award for its stunt work. It was nominated for Best Film, Best Director, Best Actor in a Supporting Role for actor Hugh Keys Byrne, and Best Original Screenplay. And at the Avoriaz Fantastic Film Festival in 1980, it won the Special Jury Award. So, boys, you know what time it is, Brody?
Let's get physical.
Okay, boys and girls, so we got a relatively new release for you today, and that is one from Kino Lorber from November 24th, 2020, and this is a 4K release. Disc 1 is an HDR Dolby Vision audio, and it features an audio commentary with art director John Dowdig, cinematographer David Egby, and special effects artist Chris Murray, moderated by filmmaker Tim Ridge, an Australian 5.1 surround and a 2.0 lossless mono, a US English dubbed and 2.0 lossless mono, dual layer UHD 100 disc, and an optional English subtitle. Disc 2 features Road Rage, new interview with director George Miller, interviews with star Mel Gibson, Joanne Samuel, and cinematographer David Egby, audio commentary with art director John Dowdig. Am I saying that right?
Doubting.
Cinematographer David Egby, special effects artist Chris Murray, moderated by filmmaker Tim Ridge. Mel Gibson, Birth of a Superstar. Mad Max, the film phenomenon. Theatrical trailers, TV spots, trailers from hell with Josh Olson, radio spots, Australian 5.1 surround, English dubbed and original English subtitles. Boys?
In a Q&A interview with the Oxford Union on YouTube, George is asked what was his transition from being a doctor to a full-time director. He states that it was a slow process to dissolve. I was interested in film. I wanted to be a doctor from 8 years old, but when I was in university, it was a time where you would feel free to roam on campus, to which I ended up going to drama lectures. So in a way, I was basically self-taught with filmmaking, I guess. and I created a short film that won me a prize to meet people in the film workshop who subsequently became important to the Australian film industry. On the documentary, The Madness of Max, the idea for Mad Max was inspired by a real-life radio journalist who would go around following the police to car accidents and interviewing people about these car accidents. George states, "It somehow resonated with me because I remember the feeling of working in casualty at the hospital and being quite disturbed by the violence and road carnage the way we accepted it. So I thought that what if it had happened to you?" And so Mad Max started off as a journalist in Melbourne who was desensitized as a journo in a way. That did not work. So I made him as a cop, someone who attends the violence after these events, and then to see what happens when that same thing happens to his own family. I wrote the script, and after 9 months of writing, I didn't believe that it would be happening in the contemporary world. Let's exaggerate and set it in the future. Then that way, all the hyperbolic sort of storytelling would mean more likely to work, especially because we didn't like the Melbourne police cars in uniform. But if we make it slightly degraded in a post-apocalyptic world to the extent of our budget, we could get cooler cars and uniforms to do more extremely hyperbolic things for that world.
They took the Star Wars approach.
Pretty much, yes.
And
It's a clever way of actually doing it.
It's awesome. It definitely adds for a cool looking setting. Definitely, the filth adds to the film.
The grime.
Oh yes.
Oh yeah.
In an interview with the American Film Institute, director George Miller states that after my short film, producer Byron Kennedy and I decided to make a feature film. Now, I thought if you really prepared, you could. I stroked out there. I'm very sorry about that. Now, I thought if you really prepared, you could film that the film would automatically follow. But however, I was in for a big surprise because it just did not go anywhere where I needed it to go, and described it like walking a big dog. You want it to go one way, but it wanted to go the other way, and it was bewildering to me. Then the best and the worst things happened. We ran out of money in the post-production, so Byron cut the sound and I cut the picture. It ended up being a great lesson because I thought, gee, I should have done this. I should have done that. And luckily, when the film came together, it did work. Suddenly, it was getting shown in Japan, France, and all around the world, and people saw something in it. I believe it was tapping into some archetype which we were completely unaware of at the time. On the Shout Factory release of Mad Max, Mel Gibson discusses on getting the role of Max. Gibson states, "I dropped a friend off, Steve Bisley, who plays Goose in the film, because he had been called in for an audition. So I dropped him off and waited for him in the casting agency room. Earlier that week, I'd gotten into a brawl and I didn't come out looking pretty. I sort of took on half a rugby team and it didn't work out too well for me. They took Polaroids of me because I was like every color of the rainbow. So they put them up and they said, hey, mate, we need freaks in this film. So when you heal up, come back and see us. However, I did go back and said to them that the photos on the wall were me. They sent me in and I spoke to George and he gave me the part right then and there. It was really weird." That was probably the start of Crazy Mel.
I can see that happening. Taking on a rugby team. Yeah, I read it was a bar fight the night before, actually.
Oh, true.
Yeah.
For the idea of the famous black Ford Interceptor, it was based on a childhood fantasy car that producer Byron Kennedy wanted as a kid. Miller states on the Madness of Max documentary that Byron Kennedy was very influential of the vehicle, that it was something that he had put a lot of work into. I remember seeing him pointing to a car in the street and saying that he was going to do things to it for the film. And then one day he drove up to me in it with a raging blower hanging out of the front bonnet. And I thought it looked amazing. And I remember shooting the underground car park scene at the Melbourne University where we have those lovely arch pillars. And when they turned over the engine, the sound of it echoing off the concrete was a fantastic sound. When the car was parked on the street in Melbourne one day, these two little old ladies walked across the road admiring and stroking the car, which gave us incredible courage that if this vehicle could impress two old women, then we might be onto something iconic here. For our listeners out there, if you want to know what sort of car that is, it is a 1973 XB GT Falcon. One of the crazy things that happened on set was the fact that the whole entire crew stopped on many freeways to film multiple scenes without police permission. George Miller proceeded to film the scenes by telling one of his crew members to just stop traffic on one of the busiest highways in Victoria. They proceeded to place traffic cones and narrow the lanes down to one with a person holding a stop sign at the end. Everyone on set could see the many cars piling up at each end, not to mention numerous cars skidding from hitting into other cars.
Don't you love not getting those permits?
Nothing bad has
Try
ever
doing that
happened.
now, George. Nothing. Try doing that now, George. All the best. Mel Gibson on George Miller's directing of photography shots. I was watching this whole thing intrigued at the process because I didn't know what it was. And I was really kind of like almost appalled and impressed at the same time. I would look at George and say, how can that work? And he says, don't worry, it'll work in the edit. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Because I also remembered George and the cameraman having nothing but slugfest right in front of everyone about the camera. And I said, George, you can't do that, mate. He replied by saying, I don't care. I'm going to do it. Then the cameraman also said not to do it. But with a quick snap back, George said, I don't give a shit. I'm going to do it either way. So then I was more for George after that. And I was like, you know what, George, do it. Go on, George, just do it. Because he was breaking rules, which was good. And it worked. Obviously, seeing the film after it had come out, we knew there and then that he knew what he was doing in the end.
He definitely did. Because it turned out really well, I think, for a lot of those decisions that he made. I found a few things as well in my time researching this. One of the few things I learned. So Mad Max actually grossed over $100 million US worldwide by about at least by 1991, but I believe originally by 81, I think was about the time it had already reached that on its original budget of about 350,000, which actually made it the most profitable film of all time, which it actually held in the Guinness Book of World Records for 20 years, and until it was beaten out by the original Blair Witch Project in 1999. Adjusted for inflation, did a little bit of math. Mad Max cost about 1.2 million to make in today's money.
Million,
And would have grossed 362 million in today's money as well, which is an insane thing to think about. It made over 300 times its budget in profit.
Not bad at all.
Which is just ridiculous. Some other things I found out. The character of Jessie was actually originally intended to be played by actor Rosie Bailey, who was also in The Young Doctors, Cop Shop, and A Country Practice. A lot of the actors worked on Cop Shop and The Young Doctors and everything right before this, I found. But while en route to the set one day with one of the stuntmen, Grant Page, their car actually got into an accident that injured both of them. Page suffered one broken leg, but was able to return a few weeks later and continue working on it. So he did still do stunt film. However, unfortunately, Bailey shattered like both of her legs and was replaced by Joanne Samuel at the last minute. Some other things learned, though it's considered one of Mel Gibson's most iconic roles, I would say at least. I mean, you know, you think Mel Gibson, you think Braveheart, Mad Max, you know. He only earned about $15,000 for his role on this one, considering that he was picked for showing up for dropping his roommate off to his audition. However, it was not the lowest amount that he'd earned because he only got $400 for his role in Summer City that Steve Bisley was also in as well beforehand. The original release of Mad Max, while it did gross that 100 million worldwide, it actually didn't really take hold in the US initially. It only made about 8 million of that 100 million in the US. And this was actually attributed to the original release. The distributor kind of dropped it. Didn't think that an Australian movie would actually do too well in America because they figured that everyone's accents were too thick and they wouldn't understand the slang. So they redubbed the entire movie with American voice actors, completely removing any Australian slang and accents. And I went and watched a few clips and it's terrible. It's bad. The actors.
Something I would like TJ to actually do, like his own commentary for Mad Max. I reckon you could pull it off, mate. I reckon it'd be something special.
Fucking right, it would be.
It just, man, they were phoning it in on those redubs. It doesn't match at all. It's just like they sound bored half the time, or like they were just really just trying to match the exact just like tone and words, but without any of the character to it. It didn't work out well. So I can see why it didn't make a a lot of money. The original redub was actually the only release of the film that was commercially available in the United States until they released a special edition DVD early about February in the year 2000. And even then, it was still kind of only a cult movie at the time. Some of the articles I found talking about the release were, God, they were 3 sentences long. And they were just like, this is a thing that exists now. And that was it. And I was like, these are film critics getting paid. I think this is a Forbes article. There was an LA Times article. That was it. That was 3 sentences long. I'm like, this is not an article. I really hope you didn't get paid that much to do this. So in addition to the redubbing of the film, the marketing in the United States was actually altered to feature more of the basic action and car crash scenes and explosions. Didn't feature really any of Mel Gibson as Max, even though the movie's named after him, because Mel Gibson was unknown in America at the time. It was only his second film, Summer City, which again he made $400 for, was his only other movie before this. And then one thing that I thought was pretty nice, and this actually kind of plays into the not getting the permits for shutting down the roads as well, in keeping with the vigilante theme of the film, but mostly just due to the low budget. The crew hired a real biker gang called the Vigilantes Motor Club or Motorcycle Club to perform in the film as extras for Toecutter's gang. And they were mainly paid, as were most of the extras, in beer because they couldn't pay them with actual money. And in fact, the scene where Johnny and a few of the others smash up the couple's car and attack them, a lot of the gang members that are smashing that car up were the actual motorcycle club, the Vigilantes members. And in doing that, while also not having permits, apparently George Miller was giving out like tickets, like vouchers from the production company that they referred to as get out of jail free cards. Because if they got stopped by the cops, they were supposed to give them those vouchers and say, we're making a movie. Please don't arrest our biker gang extras. But yeah, so that was a few interesting tidbits of information I found for this film as well.
Oh, I might just add to that a little bit. I forgot to mention it in the notes, but they were quite in character on and offset, and it made Mel Gibson very uncomfortable. There was even a time where Mel went into the editing suite with George to look at the rushes and that, and he said, I remember walking in and I would look to my right and it was just pitch black, but there was someone lying on the floor going, it's the bronze. Let's get the bronze. And then later that night or for the rest of that week, he was receiving letters from the gang with blood, like that blood written letters. So they would pierce their finger, write letters to him in blood and give it to Mel just to creep him out even more. They really went over the top.
Fuck.
Yeah, good God.
I also want to add that the mask that Mel Gibson puts on in the movie, I kind of talked to Brody about this pre-show, but it's a Tor Johnson mask, which we see in another Australian production that we'll talk about later this season, Dead Kids.
Oh,
yeah. That mask you see in a lot of films, actually, especially from this time frame. I really didn't know what the fuck it was called, and I did a little bit of research today. But it gets used in 2 different scenes in this movie. It's strange how he kind of gets angry at the end and kind of just like tears at it, but it's latex. It's it's just gonna pull.
It would have been actually cool if you had chucked the mask on to be this vigilante in the end.
You'd like that, wouldn't you?
I would have, it would have been a nice time to Dead Kids.
So, boys, let's talk about it. Okay, so what was your favorite performance?
You want to go first or should I, Brody?
Yeah, no, I can go first, mate. Well, I'm always a fan of the villain in every film, pretty much. I just find him really intriguing. But for this, like, yeah, Max is great. Oh, sorry, Mel's great as Max, but I'd have to go with Johnny the Boy just because I fucking hated him so much in this film, you know?
Thank you.
And if an actor can do that and bring that to the screen, and you know that he's done his job and as an amazing actor, you know, he stole the show for me between, you know, his violent nature, and his food salad wordplay, if you want to call that. Like, it was just, you really want to know more about him. and he's such an intriguing character. And it feels like how can I put it? You're turning in between two radio stations every time he talks. He just mumbles, carries on, but then we sort of sympathize for this character in the end. I don't know. I think Johnny the Boy for me would have to. He definitely stole the show.
Yeah, it was definitely a good performance. I think I'm gonna have to go with Bisley as Goose. I think he may have replaced Goose from Top Gun as my favorite wingman named Goose. I just really liked. I thought it was a really charismatic performance. Every time he was on screen, there were times where he outshined Mel as Max. I personally think. The court dropping the case against Johnny and his just tirade and going after him, and then just pretty much just everything up until his death. I think he was probably just one of my favorite characters on screen to watch. Personally, yeah, I'm gonna have to go with Bisley. What about you, TJ?
I love Max.
Yeah,
there's definitely some clear character progression here, and it's pretty fucking gnarly. His evolution to slowly see him going mad is just fucking cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's cool to watch him deal with it too. Like in talking to to this chief whenever he was quitting, and he's like, "I'm becoming like them, and I really, really don't want to do that." And it was unavoidable in the end, regardless.
I do like Fifi though. Roger Ward is pretty fucking cool.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Fifi! What a fitting name for a staunch bloke.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Fucking A. So favorite set piece, boys.
You know,
The Hall of Justice is fucking rad.
The Hall is rad.
Yeah, I did have that as my second, but I don't know if this counts, but I'm just going to fucking say it. The beautiful landscape of back home in Victoria.
Yes.
Yep.
I didn't realize how much I missed it until I rewatched this film. Actually, before I flew over here to Western Australia, I visited the final scene location of the film before I jumped on the plane. So it was cool to drive up and out of that gully there and then board on a plane just to remember about that. But I just love that isolated landscape of hills and wide roads, and it's just a perfect fitting for this film, like car chase sequences, and I love it.
Yeah. The Australian outback always has to be mentioned whenever we're talking about exploitation films, because a lot of them really soak up the setting and utilize that in their footage. And this film accentuates everything that is the beautiful landscape.
It wouldn't be the same without it. No. I think for mine, I'd have to go with the just the town, the town that the biker gang is terrorizing the entire time. I can't remember if they actually mentioned the name of it. I love it. It's dry. It's dusty. The town feels like it's already dying, as it should, considering, the dystopian near post-apocalyptic future. It said, has the apocalypse really already happened by this point? I know the war is started by the first one, but I know it really takes off in Road Warrior.
Yep.
Afterwards. Yeah. So I just kind of like it. It's dying. The town's on its last breath, basically. And I love watching them roll through and just terrorize this little town over and over again. The train station with Knight Rider's coffin just hanging out on a little rocking chair on it. And I love that whole town. All of it.
Absolutely. That's mine. Fucking A, man. Favorite scene / shot. Cool.
There's so many iconic scenes in this film, but the whole opening scene of the film, it's a police chase Knight Rider and leading up to his death, obviously. I think the actor who plays him gives it that he's just that psychotic cop killer, and the cinematography of the low mids between that and the close-up vehicle shots are just fucking incredible. I still look they still look better than any car chase scene in any movie today. And other than Mad Max Fury Road, they really showcase that badass Australian muscle cars of the 70s, and that definitely gives me goosebumps every time I see it. I don't know. It just feels like if you were to put heavy metal music over that opening scene, it's just a perfect fitting. It's just balls to the wall of fucking violence and mayhem. And it definitely sets up the film. And it's a nice introduction to Max, because he just shows you how slow, calm, collected he is. And when he has to come to play, he's going to fuck you up.
I'm sure if you put heavy metal over it, it would seem like a scene from Heavy Metal.
Absolutely.
I think my favorite is probably going to be Jessie getting chased by the biker gang through the woods on her little trip to the beach shortly before her and Sprague meet their end. It's just really intense. It's chaotic. It's actually scary. It's frightening for her to just get back and make it back to May and Max and the others to get out of there, just for, to think that they're safe just in time for the gang to just kill him anyway. Like, it really feels like no matter what Max does in this, he can't stop this stuff from happening.
No.
Mm-hmm.
No, things are not as there's not enough law and order to go around.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what's going on here. So my favorite scene would have to be the opening, like Brody said with his. I think it's just absolutely fucking fantastic, and it just sets the tone for the rest of the movie. It's wild. It is so fucking wild. And then my favorite shot easily is the shot of that black car that he drives at the end, coming out of the garage. It's so badass. It's kind of like that quintessential boot up montage. And that's here he comes. He's coming to fuck you up. And that's the final shot. And it's just like he's pulling out and he's ready to go. It's so fucking rad. And I love the sound it makes, that vehicle makes whenever, that whine noise.
It's like some supercharger, and that's what
Call that a death whine, because that's the last thing they hear before they
explode into a fireball.
I'm pretty sure producer Byron Kennedy said that when they were designing the cars, they all had their own different sound. He wanted them to have, well, obviously you look at Mad Max's Black Interceptor, and it's got the 4 pipes coming out the side of it, and they give off a different tone of sound compared to the yellow and blue police interceptors when you watch the film. If you really listen to the audio, he says that each one has their own different sound, and that's what they were aiming for. And like you said, Mr. Bowser, exactly right, that that's all they hear before they die is that supercharger.
Mm-hmm. Terrifying.
Favorite effect / death?
Johnny the Boys, hands down. That scene leading up to it is more of obviously a slow burn and a psychological death. Like Max really wanted him to suffer, and it feels really justified, especially when we get that lovely shot of Max driving up out of the gully there. And
can I just say
explosion? Can
I just say that I've actually seen that in real life, but with a deer, the same death that happens to that crazy dude with the semi truck that gets killed.
Oh, Toecutter?
Yeah.
Toecutter getting flattened.
I seen that in real life at like 6 a.m. driving to school one day. Yeah, the deer turns to dust, and all that was left was the head.
So your day started off well. You're like, huh?
Yeah. I was driving one direction, and the semi truck was driving the other, and it was on the highway, and the deer jumped out, and I was like, oh. And the truck was like, not like, oh. It was like, fuck it, we're just gonna keep going. Yeah. Poof.
Yeah, truck drivers down here don't fuck around, so.
Yeah, he clearly just fucking obliterated anything that was left of Toecutter, and you just see a mangled corpse shoot out the back of that fucking thing. And it is brutal as all hell.
Oh, yeah.
The old eye pop scene.
Yeah.
So awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who my favorite effect is, though. Nick?
I'm gonna have to say Goose's death. I know he didn't technically die right there as he got burned. Yeah, because he ended up in the ICU before he died, where getting Max's head swimming and everything because he sees his body and all that. But no, I really liked just Goose's going out. That because it set the stage for Johnny the Boy's death as well, and just that vengeance kill of just using the gas and the explosion to get him. Plus it just kind of also showed more of Johnny's character, that he's more or less getting forced into this by Toecutter, because just how scary as fuck Toecutter is to even his own gang at this point. I really liked the effect of it just all going up with Goose still in there and everything. I just thought it was a really intense death scene. And I believe it was also the one that they had to fight for a couple years, because the movie got banned in New Zealand for Goose's death, for him getting burned to death. And I believe it remained banned until 1983, I think is what I saw. Anyone that's going to be crazy enough to get the movie censored, I'm probably going to end up choosing that one.
It would have been cool for Goose's character to come back as a villain in future Mad Max films.
That would have been pretty dope.
Looking like Freddy.
Yeah, exactly. That'd be fucking sick. Or Cabal from Mortal Kombat.
Mm-hmm.
After watching this, I wonder if they took this scene and put it in The Burning. If you watch The Burning, there's a scene where the burned hand pops out and touches the orderly and scares the shit out of him and that's how you get introduced to Cropsey after he gets burned.
That's right. I do remember that.
Yeah. So I wonder if, and it's like a year after this movie. So like, I wonder, you know what I mean?
Can we put that in the impact section?
Maybe. You know, I'll have to agree with Slick Nick and say Goose, his death is just fucking everything leading up to it is just brutal. It's tense. There's definitely some tense shit going on there. Effect, I mean, I thought that RV popping was pretty fucking sweet, and that van getting obliterated was pretty fucking cool.
Pretty sick.
I mean, those effects and just having that entire, like, that amount of control on set in order to pull those off is just outstanding. I mean, they won awards for the stunts here. So, I mean, yeah. Mm-hmm. Thoughts on story?
Overall, I love the story. You know, it means so much to me growing up with the film. It definitely justifies the making of independent films obviously making them on a shoestring budget.
Similar to our last episode, it kind of kickstarted a movement, and more films got made down there, and, you know, kind of like our last film, it kind of made everything changed how things kind of went on. I mean, I'm kind of around the same, a lot later on, almost 10 years later than the film we did last week.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it kind of kickstarted that, what was it called? Australian New Wave cinema, I think is the movement. Yeah.
Exploitation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, yeah, like it was especially, you know, for that time of cat and mouse car chases in Australian cinema. It was just such a big thing back then for the exploitation.
Did this film kind of set that?
I kind of feel there were a couple of films earlier that had these really gnarly car chase sequences, and this just sort of amped it up to like
Spinal Tapped it.
Fucking pretty much just pedal to the metal from the word go. You know, and you put these iconic and lovable characters in that environment, and that's and what happens next is a powerful tool.
Now, why do you think
intention?
Now, why do you think car culture is such a thing in exploitation films? Is it a big thing down there?
I believe, yes. Well, Australian muscle cars or any type of like V8 engine or anything it's always been a big thing that I've grown up with. Mm-hmm. Let's just say from my point of view, I've always been into cars at a very young age, and it's mainly due to Mad Max and that. I can't really say for the 70s period, but they were bringing out some pretty gnarly cars. Like they brought out the Ford GT, and that was probably the quickest car in the world at the time. Mm-hmm. After all these Mad Max films coming out, it really just showcases Australia's love for vehicles, especially V8 engines. I don't know what it is about it. I honestly believe that this film started that. You know, you've got your Fords, you got your Holdens in here that are just batshit crazy, and people love that shit down here. I honestly believe that this film started that sort of wave of.
Now, is it the same with motorcycles?
It's hard to explain because I don't really see many of these like built up Harleys there's a lot getting around, and I'm pretty sure it's like that anywhere around.
I know in The Man with Hong Kong, and what we say that was 1975.
Yeah.
There's some pretty intense car chases in that as well. That's why I ask. And, you know, I think even motorbikes are prevalent in that film.
Yeah. So I believe that those early films started the car chase crave of Australia, and then this film come along and just showed you that you can create even better vehicles that are batshit crazy and quick. Just that really giving us that Australian Aussie muscle car, you know.
That's how Australian films stand out, is they have this level of intensity with their stunts and their vehicles that no other cinema, no other genre can come close to. That's how they stood out in such a weird time and film.
Yeah, it was kind of their own little thing back then. I mean, you had
their niche.
Like, obviously, pretty much their niche. Like, well, you look at Upgrade, Lee Winnell's Upgrade, there's a car chase scene in that. Like,
of course, that's a callback to all the other films that came before it.
That's right. And even in Body Melt, you get that car chase sequence between the police and the old mate. So it's kind of un-Australian if you don't have a fucking car chase sequence.
Is there one in Dead Kids?
To an extent. I don't think so. I honestly don't believe there is.
There was in Razorback.
Fucking A.
Yeah, Razorback's another one.
Yeah.
And it's isolated desert highway. It's just sort of a trope down this way, I assume.
I think so. I think Mad Max definitely helped start that. I mean, you talked to him, you're like, okay, intense movie, driving, just vehicles and death. Someone is either going to go Mad Max or Death Race.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, this is an interesting take on the whole revenge thriller genre as a whole. I mean, it really wasn't done much, and especially to this level before. I mean, this guy gets put through a lot before he snaps. I mean, we see a lot different storylines where it takes very little to make these people go off, especially in these vigilante films. I think this film, on terms of story, just tells a much better story than other vigilante films, especially for the time.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. If I circled back to what I mentioned earlier with just the inevitability of it all, like it just shows how far gone the world already is at this point, that even though Max is trying his absolute damnedest to not just go, I think what did he called it, terminally psychotic, like everyone else, and he's trying his best, and he even leaves the force for it and everything. It just shows, his partner gets burned alive and he has to go see his body, and he decides to quit. I'm just going to go on vacation, go live with my family, and they hunt him down. They take the last thing that he had away from him until finally he's just like, okay, fuck it. I guess I'll just take the car that they were going to give me, and it's on. It's on. Screw it. Like the world's gone at this point. I don't care anymore. And it just shows how far he just gets pushed for that.
That's right. You got Max doing the one thing that he's not meant to do as a cop, but he decides to take out more people in the film than anyone after the death of his family, and you really see him evolve and become the monster in the end. But it leaves us to question our own morals in life, like with vengeance and all that. So it's a really unique take on that story structure, I think.
I think it was fully justified. As a guy who has the word revenge tattooed on him, I think that it absolutely 100% was justified in my mind.
Yeah.
Like I said, it definitely, we can talk about impact and takeaways, but we kind of been talking about that as already with its impact on cinema and just how it stands out amongst so many other films in a very similar genre. It defined Australian cinema. Like we said, it's cool. And then the other two films that came after, full 3 films now, they're fantastic. And they just literally just keep one-upping each other. Mm-hmm. Beyond Thunderdome's a filthy movie.
Yes, it is. I think they get more iconic as time goes on. While I was actually watching this, I had a friend come in and kind of watch the end with me as well. And even though it takes place in the outback and everything, there's still some green. There's still a little bit of that civilization left, because like I said, I don't think it's full. The apocalypse has already come and gone. It's building up. We're getting close. It's that dying world. But there's still a little bit of civilization left to it. And I had a friend come in and he was watching it and was like, I remember this being hyped up as a lot more desert, like a lot more deserty, And I'm like, you're thinking of Road Warrior.
Yeah.
He's like, really? Like, you're thinking of Road Warrior? Because he goes, is the apocalypse not happened yet? I'm like, no, it's about to. Like, it's building. This is we're
on the cusp.
Penultimate. Yeah. He was like, oh, really? I'm like, yeah, no, if you're thinking the full on desert, there's nothing, not a drop of water for 100 miles. You're thinking of 2 or 3.
Yeah, and we still got water here.
They got more impactful, more at least iconic, more memorable, I think, as time went on with it. And then Fury Road feels like a callback to that. To just that idea, that feeling of the original Mad Max movies. I think, anyway, that's just personal opinion for me. But yeah.
Brody, anything you want to add?
Oh, no, not really. Oh, if I had to add something, it'd be that, Mad Max 2 definitely is one of those rare sequels that stands on its own 2 feet. It could potentially be its own film if you don't like this film. Because basically, obviously, the start of the film sort of calls back to this film, but also can call back to its own little, can start its own little new story in a sense if you really wanted to break it down. But that's for another time. That could be another season of LCD.
Yeah,
the Road Warrior.
Road Warrior.
Welcome to the Thunderdome.
That's its American title release, isn't it?
Yeah.
The Road Warrior.
Are you Mad Max too? Is that what you got?
Yeah, we're both like. I think it's even one title. Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior.
Okay.
Yeah, Brody and I, on last week's episode of Gore and More, we found out the joys of names on films and how crazy they will change depending on release. We did Fulci's Zombie, and that's probably one of the best examples for that, how there's 3 or 4 different titles for the same movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think we even addressed that too in The Possessed.
Yeah.
Madonna Del Lago.
Yep.
Them rechanging it when it hit the UK. Yeah.
Zombie Flesh Eaters.
We didn't even mention it, like even the Burble the Crystal Plumage has alternate titles.
Oh, yeah, I did notice some of those as well when I was doing the research. Yeah.
I don't even know if it has different cuts, but another time.
Yeah.
Let's rate this motherfucker. So it's high octane car crashes down under out of 5.
Ooh, I'm going to have to give it a 4.6.
Okay, Slick Nick.
All right. This might seem a bit low, but I am going to give it a 3.6, I think, just because I truly love Road Warrior a little bit more. This set the stage for it. I love this movie, but
yeah.
I'm going to give it a 3.5. That is a lights, camera, exploitation score of 3.9 out of 5 for Mad Max.
Not bad at all. Actually, that seems pretty reasonable. Yeah.
3.9 high octane car crashes down under out of 5.
Yow!
Next week. What do we got next week?
I believe it is my final pick of the season.
And what is that?
And that would be Easy Rider. We're going to go with something a little bit different, but somehow similar to this one, in that it is about a biker gang. We're going to do some biker exploitation.
I thought Lake Mungo was your last one.
Did I switch it from Easy Rider to Lake Mungo?
Or that might have been me.
Because I thought Brody switched his to Lake Mungo, so I kept mine as Easy Rider.
Oh.
Yep, that is correct.
Okay, so what is the rest of the season looking like for these guys?
So I changed mine from Lake Mungo to Dead Kids. I really wanted to talk about that on this show.
Okay. So the final 2 episodes will be Easy Rider next week, and then the American-Australian production Dead Kids, which I will mention at the top of that show, which is the film that kind of started Brody and I's friendship and that snowballed.
Aww.
Yeah. So that film's going to be pretty fun to talk about.
Don't you have another episode yourself?
Yeah, I was about to say, we had 10 episodes for this one.
We do have
this
10.
is 7. Yeah, you have another one.
Oh, I have Dressed to Kill.
Yes.
Correct.
That was
De
it.
Palma.
Yes, Brian De Palma.
Yes.
We have 10
Yeah.
episodes in season 1. So next week is Easy Rider, followed by Dressed to Kill, and then finishing off season 1, which will be Dead Kids.
Mm-hmm.
That is correct.
I don't know if we'll do Strange Invaders ever because of how hard it is to get.
Yeah, I mean, like if I really wanted to, I'd pay $150 dues for that bad boy off eBay.
Yeah.
But
I'd say I just need to find a thing and maybe make a copy of it.
You mean 1983's Strange
Actually,
Invader?
no. I can. You know what? We could probably watch it all together on Discord here.
I'm about to say
I have a capture card.
It's on Pluto.
Strange Invaders is?
Strange Invaders from 1983.
Yeah.
Yeah, Pluto. Pluto's got it.
If Brody can watch it in his region.
Probably not. I don't get anything down here.
No VPNs?
But you know what doesn't have regions? And you know what can be listened to anywhere? Content from ProjectLouder.net. Yeah, your source for pop culture and so much more. Home to many great podcasts, such as the Big Bad Beetle Bros podcast, which, Nick, you guys just dropped your season finale with the Borg Slayer Part 1, huh?
We did just drop our season finale. So we are getting some stuff together. We are going to do a few recordings before we take a little break ourselves so that the fans won't have to take a break with us.
Metallics is upon you, though.
Metallics is upon us. And we did watch the first episode of Metallics. So that is already getting put together. Like I said, we're gonna get a little backlog running. So we've still got content to put out while we are kicking our feet back for a little bit, because we have been nonstop on that for almost 2 years now. So yeah, it'll be nice to have a little break, but the episodes will not stop coming out for those of you at home.
Fucking A. Other podcasts, Bonehead Weekly, Box Office Banter, Comics and Kaijus, Brody's Fatality, a Mortal Kombat retrospective, Ghoulies Unflushed, an unofficial Ghoulies podcast. Brody, episode 2 of Fatality, which covers Mortal Kombat 3 and 4, is coming out next Wednesday, I believe.
That is correct, Mr. Bowser.
Okay. Gore and More. Next week we have what film? Hell House, LLC.
That's
Yes. Jerk the Curtain.
pick.
Joints and Joysticks, Rabbit Hole, Rants from the Black Lodge, Somewhat Supernatural, the TJ Bowser Power Hour, which I need to upload some new content for, Two Guys on Friday, Wicked Wednesdays, and covering the worst years of wrestling ruin. Find all of those over on projectlouder.net and on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Audible, and anywhere else you consume audio only content. Also, we have a YouTube page. Head on over to YouTube, type in Project Louder. You should be able to find us. We also are on Twitch, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for Project Louder. You can find me at Layhost with Laymost on most of the social media. Brody, where can they find you?
You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, anywhere you like, baby.
Ooh, slick Nick.
Same goes for me. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. It won't take much searching. Go to any of the Project Louder pages on any of that stuff. You'll eventually find me. You will.
Absolutely. So, guys, thank you for joining us for another episode of Lights, Camera, Exploitation. This is your host with the motherfucking most, signing off.
This is your DKB signing out, and I thank you for listening to this week's episode, my mother lickers.
And this is Slick Nick saying, I love all your faces. We will see you next week.
Out of the ruins, out from the wreckage, we can't make the same mistakes this time. We are the children, the last generation. We are the ones